Hello and welcome to study session number 6 of Daily Memory Lab. In today's session, the tracker shows that we have to revise the first 8 pages of e-waybill chapter. Round 3 it will be if we revise today, and we should do a second round of revision of supply under GST, which is the second chapter. First, let us do these two things, and if time is there, maybe we will read a couple of more pages, maybe 3 to 4 pages more in this supply under GST chapter. But before we get into the actual studies, first let us set the intention. Now I am going to study for 30 to 60 minutes with full focus. In this study session, I lower down all my expectations and embrace imperfection. I may or may not get big breakthroughs in this study session, and I'm totally okay with it. I will most likely make mistakes in the next 30 to 60 minutes, and if I make them, I am not going to judge myself. I embrace my mistakes and reset my ambitions. My goal is not to achieve perfection. My goal is only to make tiny progress in the next 30 to 60 minutes. With that said, let's go to the first topic, which is the first 8 pages of e-waybill. This portion of e-waybill, this introduction portion is again covered in the subsequent segment. So I'm directly starting from this topic number 2, relevant definitions. Common portal means the common goods and service tax electronic portal referred to in section 146, the common GST portal. Next, taxable supply means a supply of goods or services or both which is leviable to tax under this act, section 2, clause 108. We will see this definition later on. Place of business includes, so it's an inclusive definition, includes a place from where the business is ordinarily carried on, and includes a warehouse, a godown, or any other place where the taxable person stores his goods, supplies or receives goods or services or both, or a place where a person maintains his books of account, or a place where a taxable person is engaged in business through an agent by whatever name called. So a place where a normal business is carried on, like factory or godown or warehouse, any of that thing. And then also it includes a place where books of accounts are maintained, and also the place where the business is carried on through an agent, broker, whatever name you call. If you carry out your business through the help of an agent, that agent's premises is also considered as a place of business. Okay. Taxable person means a person who is registered or liable to be registered under section 22 or section 24. This we will study when we study registration chapter. Principal place of business means the place of business specified as the principal place of business in the certificate of registration. This is GST registration, right? Proper officer, in relation to any function to be performed under this act, it means the commissioner or the officer of the central tax who is assigned that function by the commissioner in the board, section 2, clause 91. Registered person means a person who is registered under section 25 but does not include a person having a unique identity number, section 2, clause 94. Tax period means the period for which the return is required to be furnished, monthly or quarterly depending on the assessee. Document includes a written or printed record of any sort and electronic record as defined in clause T of section 2 of the Information Technology Act 2000. Okay, voucher means an instrument where there is an obligation to accept it as consideration or part consideration for a supply of goods or services or both, and where the goods or services are both to be supplied or the identities of their potential suppliers are either indicated on the instrument itself or in related documentation, including the terms and conditions of use of such instruments. Generally, I think it is invoice or bill of supply. Those things I think they are mentioning it here. Conveyance includes a vessel, an aircraft, and a vehicle, section 2, clause 34. So we have covered the definitions part. Let's move to this e-waybill, section A68, the charging section, and then the relevant CGST rules. Under GST regime, for quick and easy movement of goods across India without any hindrance, all the checkposts across the country are abolished. However, in order to maintain the movement of goods for controlling any tax evasion, e-way bill system has been introduced. Under this system, a taxpayer prior to movement of goods via a conveyance would inform each transaction's details to the tax department, obtain an acknowledgement number for having thus informed, and then use this acknowledgement number as a valid document accompanying the conveyance carrying goods. Okay, so the e-way bill has to be generated prior to the movement of goods. The idea is that the taxpayer be made to upload the details of each transaction to a common portal through the internet, and once uploaded, the common portal would automatically generate a document which can be tracked and verified easily by any stakeholder. Okay, so this is what we are going to revise anyway. We revised 2 rounds, isn't it? Part A, Part B and all we have to furnish. So that's what they are talking about here. Okay, statutory requirement. Section 68 stipulates that the government may require the person in charge of a conveyance carrying any consignment of goods of value exceeding such amount as may be specified to carry with him such documents and such devices as may be prescribed. So again, we saw this previously. It is only talking about such amount, such documents, such devices as may be prescribed. So these will be, we will be reading this in the future, that such amount is 50,000 rupees and such documents is about your invoice, bill of supply, delivery challan as the case may be, and such devices is that you have this RFID and all, something we saw, isn't it? Your e-way bill electronic number or electronic invoice number, you have to carry all those things. Rule 138 prescribes e-way bill as the document to be carried for the consignment of goods in certain prescribed cases. Okay, what is an e-way bill? A way bill is a receipt or a document issued by a carrier giving details and instructions relating to the shipment of consignment of goods, and the details include name of consignor, consignee, point of origin of the consignment, its destination and route. It's basically a details document about the transport, a detailed document about the transport, complete details, who is the sender, who is the receiver, point of origination, point of destination, what is being carried on, the value of it, all those details will be present in that e-way bill. Okay. E-way bill is a compliance mechanism wherein by way of digital interface, the person causing the movement of goods uploads the relevant information prior to the commencement of the movement of goods and generates e-way bill on the GST portal. So we saw this point again, person causing the movement of goods. Who causes the movement of goods? We will see it can be the supplier or it can be a recipient. So sometimes supplier might not be registered, so in that case recipient, and then sometimes recipient may not be registered, so in that case supplier. We saw all those combinations. We will see clearly in some time. In other words, e-way bill is an electronic document generated on the GST portal evidencing movement of goods. Okay, what are the benefits of e-way bill? Following are the benefits of e-way bill mechanism. Physical interface to pave way for interface resulting in elimination of state boundary checkposts. Okay, second point, it will facilitate faster movement of goods. Okay, so because they have eradicated this checkpost concept, the trucks will go much faster. It will improve the turnaround time of trucks and help the logistics industry by increasing the average distances traveled, reducing the travel time as well as costs. So let's say again, the example that I gave in the previous sessions are, let's say it takes for me from Chennai to go to Bangalore, let's say it takes for a truck 7 to 8 hours because of 4 to 5 checkposts were in between this. Now the checkpost concept has been removed, so the truck doesn't need to stop at every checkpost and wait 10 to 15 minutes to do the checking and all that. So the transport time of 7 hours from Chennai to Bangalore is now reduced to, let's say, 5.5 hours. So that's a significant reduction in travel time, and it is a huge thing for logistics aspect of business. Nice. E-way bill is generated electronically in form GST EWB01. So EWB01 is normal e-way bill, the regular e-way bill. EWB02 is consolidated e-way bill, which we will see later. E-way bill can be generated through various modes like web, Android app, SMS using bulk upload tool and API based site-to-site integration. Right. The facility of generation, cancellation, updation and assignment of e-waybill is available to the supplier, recipient and the transporter as the case may be. The prerequisite for generation of e-waybill is that the person who generates e-waybill should be a registered person on GST portal. So unregistered persons cannot generate e-waybill. So this is a prerequisite. Okay. And he should register on the e-waybill portal using GST IN. His GST unique number will be there, isn't it? So with that only they can generate e-waybill. If the transporter is generating the e-waybill but he is not a registered person under GST law, it is mandatory for him to get enrolled on the e-waybill portal before generation of the e-waybill to get the 15-digit unique transporter ID called trans IN. So either you have to be a GST properly registered a properly registered person under GST, or if you are a transporter, if you don't have GST IN, at least you should have this unique transporter ID called trans IN. Okay, trans IN or transporter ID is a unique number generated by EWB system for unregistered transporter once he enrolls on the system, which is similar to GST IN format and is based on state code PAN and checksum digit. This trans-in or transporter ID can be shared by transporter with his clients who may enter this number while generating e-waybills for assigning goods to him for transportation. Okay. E-waybill provisions as contained in Rules 138, 138A, B, C, D, E, Chapter 16 of the CGST rules elaborated as under. First point. When is e-waybill required to be generated? Rule 138.1. Whenever there is a movement of goods of consignment value exceeding 50,000 in relation to a supply for reasons other than supply or due to inward supply from an unregistered person. So the movement can be anything. It can be a proper supply, a proper sale transaction between a buyer and seller, or it can be like for reasons other than supply. It need not be a proper sale transaction. Can be a normal movement of stock transfer from one end to another, and then it is also due to inward supply from an unregistered person. So if you are a registered person, then if you are buying goods from or taking inward supply from an unregistered person, then yes, you have to generate e-waybill. The registered person who causes such movement of goods shall furnish the information relating to the said goods as specified in Part A of Form GST EWB1 before commencement of such movement. Okay. It is important to note that information is to be furnished prior to the commencement of movement of goods and is to be issued whether the movement is in relation to a supply or for reasons other than supply. So who causes movement of goods? If supplier is registered and undertakes to transport the goods, movement of goods is caused by the supplier. If recipient arranges transport, movement is caused by him. If goods are supplied by an unregistered supplier to a registered recipient, movement shall be said to be caused by recipient if the recipient is known at the time of commencement of movement of goods. In that case, only recipient will be able to generate e-waybill because recipient is the registered person and they only will have the GST IN required for furnishing Part A or preparing the whole e-waybill itself. Okay, what is meaning of consignment value of goods? Consignment value of goods shall be the value determined in accordance with the provisions of section 15. It shall be the value declared in an invoice, bill of supply or a delivery challan as the case may be issued in respect of the said consignment. It also includes the central tax, state tax, union territory tax, integrated tax and cess charged if any in the document. So consignment value for computing the limit whether e-waybill applies or not, you have to include the tax amount. Shall exclude the value of exempt supply of goods where the invoice is issued in respect of both exempt and taxable supply of goods. As discussed earlier in this chapter, in case of movement of goods for reasons other than supply, the movement is occasioned by means of a delivery challan which has to necessarily contain the value of goods. The value given in the delivery challan should be adopted in the e-waybill. So this is what I have been thinking. For reasons other than supply is, yes, I may have one godown here and another godown somewhere like 200 kilometers from Chennai. So I may have to move goods based on my demand requirements from one godown to another godown. It need not be called as a supply because I am single organization moving goods from one hand to the other hand. So I don't think so it gets covered under the word supply or not, because we are yet to read what is supply. So I think let's assume that it is not a supply. So this is movement for reasons other than supply. So now the kilometer is again 200 kilometers and the value of goods, let's say, is more than 50,000. So I don't have to issue invoice from one godown to another godown because it is an internal transfer. So I just make the movement through the issue of a delivery challan. So in that case, based on the delivery challan, I will generate e-waybill. Bhanu Pratap, shoe manufacturers registered in Punjab, sold shoes to a retail seller in Gujarat at a value of 48,000 excluding GST at 18% and wants to send consignment of such shoes to Gujarat. The consignment value will be 56,640, 48,000 multiplied by 118%. Since the movement of goods is in relation to supply of goods and the consignment value exceeds 50,000, e-waybill is mandatorily required to be issued in the given case. Okay, so we have completed till here. This is where we had finished in the first round. So let us call this as complete. We have completed third round of the first 8 pages. So tomorrow we will read the next 6 to 7 pages. Like that it will keep going. Now let us go and cover this target of first 10 pages of supply. Supply under GST. Let me read from the beginning. Introduction. A taxable event is any transaction or occurrence. But again, before I proceed, I just have one sudden thought. Personally speaking, comparing to what I read in round 1 and round 2, the jump in clarity from round 1 to round 2 was somewhere, I will say, some 10 to 15% jump. But from round 2 to round 3, the moment I had finished the entire chapter 2 rounds and now I'm reading round 3, I was able to predict what is going to come next. And I was also able to relate much more concepts. When I read something like generation, updation, cancellation, all those details, something like that. And when I'm reading a passage, when I read a typical new words, I am able to foresee the provisions that have been given in the future. Okay, when I read the word cancellation of e-waybill, I immediately thought about the last segment which was given. Okay, cancellation of e-waybill. I was able to connect the point that you cannot edit an e-waybill. When you have raised an e-waybill and it is a wrong one, or the facts have changed, you cannot edit it. Only you have to cancel it fully and you have to generate a new e-waybill. This provision we saw yesterday. So when I read the first 7 pages for the third time, some lines in between that when I read, I was able to connect even the future points. So I can see that by the time I reached round 3, my confidence clarity has had a huge jump. So I am only expecting by the time when we do round 4 and round 5, it only reaches near perfection. So on that note, let us proceed here. You also let me know in the comment section how you have felt after round 3, the first 8 pages. Okay, a taxable event is any transaction or occurrence that results in a tax consequence. Before levying any tax, taxable event needs to be ascertained. It is the foundation stone of any taxation system. It determines the point at which tax would be levied. Okay. Under the earlier indirect tax regime, the framework of taxable event in various statutes was prone to catena of interpretations, resulting in litigation since decades. The controversy is largely related to issues like whether a particular process amounted to manufacture or not, whether the sale was predetermined sale, whether a particular transaction was a sale of goods or rendering of services, etc. The GST laws resolved these issues by laying down one comprehensive taxable event called supply, that is, supply of goods or services or both. Various taxable events, namely manufacture, sale, rendering of service, purchase, entry into a territory of state, etc., that existed prior to introduction of GST have been done away with in favor of just one event, supply. Prior to GST, we used to have excise, service tax, VAT, and excise dealt with manufacture, service tax dealt with services, VAT dealt with sale. So we had completely different taxable events governed by different statutes. So created a lot of confusion. Now all of them have been integrated into GST, and the taxable event has been integrated into this one concept called supply instead of manufacture, sale, or service. The GST law, by levying tax on the supply of goods or services, departs from the historically understood concept of taxable event under the state VAT laws, excise laws, and service tax law, that is sale, manufacture, and provision of services respectively. In the GST regime, the entire value of supply of goods and or services is taxed in an integrated manner, unlike the earlier indirect taxes which were charged independently either on the manufacture or sale of goods or on the provision of services. Okay, so that was the general introduction. Let's excuse me. Let's go to relevant definitions. Okay, first one is goods. Again, now I am able to recollect what happened yesterday. We saw a wide array of definitions. Some of them were so straightforward, some of them were so understandable at the first round. Some of them were extremely complicated. I didn't feel comfortable at all. It was not pleasant to read. So I hope that it gets better now when we read it today for the second time. Let's do this anyway. Goods means every kind of movable property other than money and securities, but includes actionable claim, growing crops, grass, and things attached to or forming part of the land, which are agreed to be severed before supply under a contract of supply. Section 2, clause 52. Okay, services means anything other than goods, money, and securities, but includes activities relating to the use of money or its conversion by cash or by any mode from one form, currency or denomination, to another form, currency or denomination, for which a separate consideration is charged. Explanation. It is clarified that the expression services includes facilitating or arranging transactions in securities. So this is also included. Currency exchange services is also included. Securities exchange services is also included. Okay. Next, principal. Principal means a person on whose behalf an agent carries on the business of supply or receipt of goods or services, or both. Competent authority means such authority as may be notified by the government. Okay. Family means the spouse and children of the person and the parents, grandparents, brothers and sisters of the person if they are wholly or mainly dependent on the said person. Section 2, clause 49. Government means the central government. Local authority means a panchayat as defined in Constitution of Article 243 of the Constitution. Municipality, clause E 243p of the Constitution. Municipal committee, Zilla Parishad, district board, and any other authority legally entitled to or entrusted by the central government or any state government with the control or management of a municipal or local fund. Cantonment board as defined in section 3 of the Cantonments Act 2006. A regional council or a district council constituted under 6th schedule to the Constitution. A development board constituted under Article 371 and Article 371J of the Constitution. A regional council constituted under 371 of the Constitution, section 2, clause 69. Okay, so apart from government, there are so many local authorities. The definition has been pretty specific. Okay, now let us talk about consideration. In relation to the supply of goods or services or both, it includes any payment made or to be made, whether in money or otherwise, in response to or for the inducement of, okay, the supply of goods or services or both. Okay, whether by the recipient or by any other person, but shall not include any subsidy given by the central government or a state government. Okay, so I just want to do a quick trick or something like that. Let me simply delete this clause, a pair of clauses here, in response to or for the inducement of, and then I'll just read straight away. The understanding gets a bit better. Consideration means any payment made, whether in money or otherwise, in respect of the supply of goods or services, whether by the recipient or by any other person. So simply they are saying that when I make payment from one person to another person, whether for supply of goods or services, it is consideration, but it does not include any subsidy that I received from central government or state government. Okay, next. The monetary value of any act or forbearance in respect of, in response to, or for the inducement of the supply of goods or services or both, whether by the recipient or by any other person, but shall not include any subsidy given by the central government or a state government. Now I am able to connect the dots. See, consideration, it also includes the monetary value of any act or forbearance. So I was wondering, what is this forbearance? Now see, these two are opposite words. Act or forbear means you bear something, you don't act. So for sometimes we can get money for not acting also. I don't know, I'm not able to get any ready example, but let's say getting rewarded for an act. Let's say I have to do the accounts of a company, I get charged for that, I can raise an invoice, I audit a company and sign the balance sheet. So this is an active act, it's a deed that I do, for that I actually get money. But let's say there could be a scenario where I get paid for not doing anything, forbearance, I have to bear it. So that is what is given here. So monetary value for any action, for supply of goods or services or both, or for not acting, forbearance, for goods of supply, for regarding goods or services or both. Okay. So again, this also does not include any subsidy given by the central government or a state government. However, a deposit given in respect of the supply of goods or services or both shall not be considered as payment made for such a supply, unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. Okay, so let's say I have to get a house for rent. So let's say my house rent is 20,000 per month. I give a deposit of 20,000, 5 months deposit, 1 lakh rupees to my future house owner. Now this is a deposit I gave for getting a service of renting a house. So that the advance that I gave, the deposit I gave, should not be treated as consideration. However, let's say I have given notice to vacate the house. So the house owner decided to take rent from the advance itself. Let's say the last 3 months notice, the house owner deducts 3 months rent and gives me the 2 months advance as a return thing. So I got 40,000 back. So the 60,000, it is applied as rent for the last 3-month period. So that will be, now the same advance has become consideration. So now it will be like a proper consideration for the said supply. Okay, this is clear now. Actionable claim. Actionable claim means a claim to any debt other than a debt secured by, okay, this is again, it was a little tricky definition yesterday. Let us read this again. Actionable claim means a claim to any debt other than a debt secured by mortgage of immovable property, or by hypothecation or pledge of movable property, or to any beneficial interest in movable property not in the possession, to either actual or constructive of the claimant, which the civil courts recognize as affording grounds for relief, whether such a debt or beneficial interest be existent, accruing, conditional or contingent. Again, I got lost after this area, so this is still not so clear. Actionable claim means a claim to any debt other than a debt. So I think the other than is given at the very front. So whatever has followed is not actionable claim, I think. A debt secured by mortgage of immovable property. Okay, actionable claim. Okay, fine. Let this be an open loop. Let us come anyway. We will come to this one more time later. Manufacture means processing of raw materials or inputs in any manner that results in emergence of a new product having a distinct name, character and use, and the term manufacturer shall be construed accordingly. Okay, this is fine. Money means the Indian legal tender or any foreign currency, check, promissory note, bill of exchange, letter of credit, draft, pay order, traveler's check, money order, postal or electronic remittance or any other instrument recognized by the Reserve Bank of India when used as consideration to settle an obligation or exchange with Indian legal tender of another denomination, but shall not include any currency that is held for its numismatic value. So this we saw yesterday. So this numismatic value is something people collect coins for collecting sake, so that you don't consider as money. Other than that, anything that is recognized by Reserve Bank of India by any name that you call, it is still considered as money only. Okay. So taxable supply, it means a supply of goods or services or both which is leviable to tax under this act. Taxable territory means the territory to which provisions of this act apply. Just give me a second. Taxable supply means a supply of goods or services or both which is leviable to tax under this act. Okay, territory means the provisions wherever the provisions of this act will apply. Non-taxable territory means it is which is outside the taxable territory. Okay, what is the definition of India? India means the territory of India as referred to in Article 1 of the Constitution, its territorial waters, seabed and subsoil, underlying such waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone or any other maritime zone as referred to in the territorial waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone and other maritime zones act, and the airspace above its territory and territorial waters, section 2 clause 56. Okay, who is a supplier? Supplier in relation to any goods or services or both shall mean the person supplying the said goods or services or both, and shall include an agent acting as such on behalf of such supplier in relation to the goods or services or both supplied. Okay. However, a person who organizes, again this was a pretty confusing amendment. I think it was given in bold italics. I think this is a recent amendment, I think. Let me know. Anyway, let me read this again. It was pretty confusing yesterday. However, a person who organizes or arranges directly or indirectly supply of specified actionable claims, including a person who owns, operates or manages digital or electronic platform for such supply, shall be deemed to be a supplier of such actionable claims. Okay. Whether such actionable claims are supplied by him or through him, and whether consideration in money or money's worth, including virtual digital assets, for supply of such actionable claims is paid or conveyed to him or through him, or placed at his disposal in any manner, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such supplier of specified actionable claims, as if he is the supplier liable to pay the tax in relation to the supply of such actionable claims. Again, so densely packed. I'm waiting for the situation where we get into the explanation part. I know the rest of the chapter will have lots of explanation, breaking down of this. So I'm waiting for that. Anyway, moving on. Recipient. A recipient of supply of goods and or services means where a consideration is payable for the supply of goods or services or both, the person who is liable to pay that consideration. Where no consideration is payable for the supply of goods, the person to whom the goods are delivered or made available, or to whom possession or use of the goods is given or made available. And where no consideration is payable for the supply of a service, the person to whom the service is rendered. Okay. And any reference to a person to whom a supply is made shall be construed as a reference to the recipient of supply, and shall include an agent acting as such on behalf of the recipient in relation to the goods or services or both supplied. So now we can see this repetitive pattern. It always, they are adding this thing. It also includes an agent acting on behalf of the principal or the recipient. I think this is the third or fourth time that we are seeing here. See, you can see here supplier. So it include an agent acting on behalf of such supplier. Here also you can see this agent. Fine. Okay, person includes an individual, HUF, company, a firm, an LLP, an association of persons or body of individuals, whether incorporated or not, in India or outside India, any corporation established by or under any central or state or provincial act or government company as defined in section 2 clause 45 of the Companies Act, any body corporate incorporated by or under the laws of a country outside India, a cooperative society registered under any law relating to cooperative societies, a local authorities, central government or state government, society as defined under the Societies Registration Act, trust, every artificial juridical person not falling above. Okay, our discussion in this material will principally be confined to the provisions of CGST and IGST laws, as the specific state GST laws are outside the scope of the syllabus. Okay. Concept of supply. Okay, again a very densely packed definition. Section 7 of the CGST Act. The concept of supply is the keystone of the GST architecture. Provisions relating to the meaning and scope of supply are contained in Chapter 3 of the CGST Act, read with various schedules given under the said Act. Following sections and schedules shall be discussed in this chapter and to understand the concept of supply. Okay, Section 7, meaning and scope of supply. Section 8, taxability and of composite and mixed supplies. Schedule 1, activities to be treated as supply even if made without consideration. Schedule 2, activities or transactions to be treated as supply of goods or as supply of services. So Schedule 1 and 2, we are treating things as supply. Schedule 3, activities or transactions which shall be treated neither as supply of goods nor as supply of services. Okay, so Schedule 3 is like an exemptions list, so where you don't consider them as supply. Okay, let's talk about Section 7, meaning and scope of supply. Clause A, subsection 1, Clause A. All forms of supply includes all forms of supply of goods or services or both such as sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease or disposal made or agreed to be made for a consideration by a person in the course or furtherance of business. Okay, general sale for a consideration in the course of business or furtherance of business. Furtherance of business means for a development of business. Okay. Clause AA. The activities or transactions by a person other than an individual to its members or constituents or vice versa for cash, deferred payment or other valuable consideration. Explanation. For the purposes of this clause, it is hereby clarified that notwithstanding anything contained in any other law for the time being in force or any judgment, decree or order of any court, tribunal or authority, the person and its members or constituents shall be deemed to be two separate persons, and the supply of activities or transactions inter se shall be deemed to take place from one such person to another other than individual to its members or constituents or vice versa, by a person to its members or constituents. Just I'm trying to pull an example just to keep this part concrete. By a person to its members other than an individual. By a person other than an individual. So remove individual from this. So let's take a company. So here activities or transactions by a company to its members for cash or deferred payment other than or other valuable consideration. Let's say the activities or transactions by a company to its members for cash. So what can be a transaction by a person to its member? Who is the member of a company? Member of a company is like shareholder of a company. So the shareholder of a company can be an individual or it can also be another company. So let's keep example much clearer. Activities by a company to its subsidiary company or its holding company, because its member isn't it. So member will be holding company for cash. So in that situation, even if they are consolidated, even if they look like a same company or anything, it will be deemed as they are two separate persons, and supply of such activities or transactions inter se shall be deemed to take place from one such person to another. Okay, fine. Kind of we are getting near to this. I know I'm not accurate about this, but let's see anyway in the explanation we will get to see. Clause B, importation of services for a consideration whether or not in the course or furtherance of business. Yeah, whenever I import certain services, treat it as supply. Okay, it has come in the main section itself. Okay. Clause C, the activities specified in Schedule 1 made or agreed to be made without a consideration. So even if it is made without a consideration, certain things, certain activities, we deem it as supply. Okay. Okay, subsection 1A, where certain activities or transactions constitute a supply in accordance with the provisions of subsection 1, they shall be treated either as supply of goods or supply of services as referred to in Schedule 2. Okay. Okay, next. Subsection 2. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1, activities or transactions specified in Schedule 3 or such activities or transaction undertaken by the central government, a state government or any local authority in which they are engaged as public authorities as may be notified by the government on the recommendations of the council shall be treated neither as a supply of goods nor as a supply of service. So they are starting this they are starting with this subsection with this clause of notwithstanding anything contained. So they are saying that forget about whatever I said in subsection 1 and subsection 1A. The things that I am saying in subsection 2, it will be covered in Schedule 3, and also certain activities done by central government and state government and local authority as in their capacity as a public authority. So in such situations, whatever they do, those activities, remove it from the concept of supply itself. So this subsection 2 we have to be little careful about. We will read about this in detail later on. Okay, now subsection 3, subject to the provisions of 1, 1A and 2, government may, on the recommendations of the council, I think this is GST council, I think, specify by notification the transactions that are to be treated as supply of goods and not as a supply of service and not as a supply of goods. So I think these could be some composite supplies, I think, where element of goods is also involved, element of supply is also involved. So gray area has come. So in that situation, the government will specifically say that no, treat it fully as a supply of goods. No, treat this fully as a supply of service. Okay, so this subsection 3 is like a clarificatory thing. We will see this in detail. Now, I think we have already reached almost 40 to 45 minutes of this session. Okay, so what I'll do in tomorrow's class, so we are not going to study anything new today. In tomorrow's session, we will start with 2.10 from here. We will read maybe 5 to 6 pages tomorrow. We will proceed somewhat in the definition of supply itself. I think the explanation itself will be going for a while. So we will learn this in detail tomorrow. I hope today's session was useful to you. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. We will be revising round 3 of page number 12.9 to 12.15, and then we will also study something new today. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. Thank you and bye bye.